thing, and then we can push this thing and start. So here's the thing I push to start the thing. This episode of Lords of the Storm is brought to you by our sponsors over at Patreon, where you, yes you, can also support the show. Just head over to patreon.com/Lords of the Storm to become a patron today.
Heroes, gather tribute and earn my favor. What do you say? Are you ready to begin?
I think we might be ready to begin. My name is Greg Gizmozord Parker, and you're listening to Lords of the Storm, episode 142, the weekly Heroes of the Storm podcast for you, the true Heroes of the Storm. I'm joined tonight, of course, by the Zord Lords themselves, Mr. Kevin Multi-Zord Ellis and Ryan TBK Zord Reader. Mr. Alpaca Jennington could not make it tonight, but that's all right because we got Multi. But we
no, he's here. He's just in the background.
Oh, there he is.
This?
Yeah, I see him. There he is.
Yeah. He's always here. Don't even worry about it.
Perfect.
Mr. Jennington is what he prefers to be called.
Okay, Mr. Jennington. There we go. We got a show for you tonight. First and foremost, the internet is on fire. Supports are dead. Call 911. It's all over. No, I'm just kidding. Everything is going to be fine. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
There is no support anymore.
There's none. No, I don't know. Hanzo enters
They
the
actually
PTR.
took him out of the game.
They're
We
gone.
don't have to worry about it anymore.
They're all
gone.
specialists. Hanzo enters the PTR as well as Hammer, a Hammer rework already going live. We recap the 2018 gameplay Reddit Q&A, and we have our set rosters for HGC Season 2. But before we get into all of that, first off, TBK, how are you doing tonight?
I am doing wonderful. I am back from vacation. I have a decent microphone again, which is wonderful. I'm not using my MacBook Air internal mic on hotel internet. It's wonderful times. I've gotten to play Heroes. I managed to snag the year-long stim pack right before the sale went off. It's all good times.
Speaking of, and you just reminded me of this because I said I was going to say something about this week and I forgot, and then you just said
brought
that.
it up.
Crap.
So year-long stim packs, I love them. They're great. They're fantastic. I agree with everything you guys said last week. I didn't get one last year just because I couldn't afford it at the time, and then this year, I went to get one, and I saw that first off, it wasn't discounted as much as it previously is. That's fine. However, because it wasn't discounted that much, you know what? In order to, the recommended gym pack to get it isn't the, what is it, $50 or $60 one. No, it's the $99 one to get it because of the new discount.
Okay. I will say, you can get a 5,500 gem pack and then the 500 gem pack.
You can.
Because it was 6,000 gems, and that's what I got.
You can. And that's what I ended up doing, even though I hate it. But still, you click on it. The recommended one is the $99.
I would recommend 99.
I know.
For everything.
Of course. It's just like you want to get this 100 gem skin. Excellent. The $99 bundle is for you.
I just feel like, and I've talked to several people that were not super thrilled on it as well, that the decrease in the sale that from what it used to be was for that specific reason to bump it up to then try and get people to buy the $99, which is great.
Not just this.
That's fine. But
the $50 one and then also the smaller one as TBK did is another part of the plan. I mean, it's kind of like we've been
you're
seeing
still
this
buying
in
more
gaming
gyms than you
for
need.
years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've been seeing this in gaming for years. They deliberately make the money points exactly where you can't just get one clean purchase. You have to get like a couple separate ones. Can you remember like Xbox Live, all the little mini purchases with their points on there? Like it got nuts for a while, at least back when I played.
And I mean,
in the old 360 days, but
it's not the end of the world. Like, it's fine.
No.
I still got it. I was just a little salty about it. But yeah, so that reminded me. Thank you. Multi, how are you
It's
doing
weird.
tonight?
It's weird though. I don't think I could survive without the stim pack anymore.
It's a
They've
struggle.
got me hooked. It's like Blizzard cocaine.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because
Yeah.
you guys were talking about.
If it ran out, if it ever actually ran out, I don't know what I'd do. I'd play a game and be like, "Oh, where is my XP and gold?"
You just start scratching yourself to death.
It's
Yeah,
a
and
huge
wither
difference.
and fade away.
'Cause I didn't have one for most of this last year because I didn't buy one last year.
But you
It's
got
a
any of the
slow
freebies that were
grind.
passed your way, right? And then like there was a huge difference, I assume.
Oh yeah, there's a huge difference. Like I bought one here and there for the events, like the summer event and Halloween event, and like I've actually been still holding on. There's no reason to really hold on to it now, but the 3-day one, because I was saving it for something else, like a weekend I had to sit down and actually grind stuff out. So, yeah, it was weird. But how are you doing tonight, Multi?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well. Still getting used to the baby life, but I'm back to work now, so that's cool, I guess. I don't know, whatever. No, I'm doing well though, for sure. Been getting some games in myself. I have tried out the new hammer, a couple other things, some of the stealth changes on the PTR and stuff, so I'm ready to go.
Excellent. Yeah, I know I haven't gotten to play with you in a while because baby reasons, obviously, but I've been meaning to. I know a lot of you all have downloaded the Mobile Legends MOBA because that's a little bit easier
Yeah.
for you to play at some time or at some points. So I'm going to have to check
If,
that
if the
out.
baby's asleep in my arms and I have two hands free, then yes, I could squeeze that one in. Funny story though. Talk about Mobile Legends ripping off of everything though. One of their Nero heroes is a swordsman that's kind of blackish, kind of greenish, got a really long sword, but its name is Argus. Just so you know.
Ah,
Nice.
that's
Yep.
funny.
Nice. Yeah, because I remember you
Little-
talking
little
about
bit
like
of
a
fell flavor.
chin type character in there a while back too. I haven't
Oh,
played
yeah.
that one. I've played Vainglory, I think, like only a couple games, but I'll check it out.
Yeah, it's okay.
Well, have you guys been up to anything else exciting in any other games this past week? I know the latest raid for World of Warcraft dropped yesterday. Was it more OPAF is for competitive in Overwatch now?
Moira.
Yeah.
That's right. That's how it's spelled.
I can't pronounce. It's another name. I'll never get it. So, anything else
Moira.
exciting or?
I can't play Moira, man, because my computer doesn't load the initial load screen fast enough, and someone has always picked her by the time I load. So, like, I could try mode her, I guess, but shrug.
Man,
I don't know. I need someone techie to help me fix this. Maybe I just need a new computer.
I still haven't checked her out. I've been meaning to get back in Overwatch because I still like since they added the custom games in. I've been wanting to do like some of the paintball modes people have been talking about. I haven't gotten a chance to try out any of those or anything. But TPK, you checked anything else out Blizzard or has it just been Heroes?
So, as much as I hate to do this, I've decided to completely cut myself off from WoW. I'm doing it now. I'm doing it now, clean cut, because
Until next expansion.
No, as much love
Until next
as I had for the cinematic. I've got a second kid coming in March, and I can no longer justify subscription games. I just can't do it. Just can't do it. So I'm cutting myself off. I'm stepping back. I'm just gonna just hug Heroes close because it's good to me. It's free, and I love it so much. And we're just gonna do that. And then I'm going to also spend a little time with my Steam sale purchase, which is Wolfenstein, the first one. I didn't get the second one yet because I heard the first one was quite good. And I've been looking for a new single player game ever since Mass Effect Andromeda let me down. Hardcore. So I'm gonna try out some Wolfenstein.
Okay.
Pretty excited to try that.
I'm just saying I don't hope you fail in quitting this and just cutting it off. But I'm just saying we've been here before, not just with you, but with a lot of Zords. We've been here before. So I wish you the best in your commitment.
I've been there before.
And yeah, we'll see. But let's go ahead. Before we get into all the new stuff here, real quick, we do have a new patron update. So Bo S, thank you for becoming a patron, man. We really appreciate it. And we appreciate all of our patrons who continue to support the show and help us do what we do and do what we do better because of you all. So thank you. Now,
Thank you.
we'll hop into the news. Okay, first up, I don't know if you guys tried it. There was a new Brawl this week that we may have talked about potentially being data mined a few weeks ago, but it was here. The Escape from Braxis PvE Brawl is out, and it's incredible. It was really good. It's kind of like the best way to describe it, I think, is a mix-up between like StarCraft and WoW, or I guess Heroes and WoW, like a little mini dungeon where you got
Sure.
3 little stages of working your way through little maze-like places, killing some little enemies. There's some bigger ones, Heroes, Tychus, Kerrigan, Diablo, Stitches, Zagara, Abathur, Butcher, that show up every once in a while. Then you hold a point, and then once you get to the 3rd stage, there's actually like a little mini boss that has mechanics that, if you guys ever played WildStar, it's kind of like their dungeon or raid bosses where it telegraphs things. And it's pretty cool. It's a nice little thing to go back, try and beat your best times. I haven't gotten a gold time yet. I don't know what the limit is for gold. I think
Not sure either.
8
my
minutes.
8 minutes?
8 minutes. Yeah.
No, because me and you got like 740, and that wasn't gold, was it?
Yeah, that's gold.
Oh.
It was like 8 minutes, and then 2 more minutes is silver, and then beyond that is bronze, I think.
Okay.
Which is funny because it is super fun, and it is everything I wanted in an initial like PvE brawl type thing. I want this made into its own mode. I want this expanded on. I want to play this
Oh, yeah.
constantly. It's amazing. It's not super hard.
It is.
It's not, but the community has turned it into a really cool like speed run type
Oh,
thing,
yes.
trying to get their times down further and further. And I think the current winner, at least as of Reddit earlier today, was 4 minutes and like 15 seconds or something like
That's
that.
pretty
Pretty
crazy.
insane. So it's really cool that the community, everyone, I haven't talked to anybody who's really had anything bad to say about it. Like everyone seems to really have jumped on this, is super supportive. Apparently, I heard tell that the heroic version of this is coming this next week,
Oh wow.
which is
So a
supposed to
harder
be
version.
a little harder, some extra stuff going on. I don't know how much harder it's actually going to be, but I love the fact that they're playing with this. And it was even funnier because it just kind of came out of nowhere. It was like
Yes.
Thanksgiving week. There wasn't a big fanfare or anything. It was just like, oh, there's a PvE brawl
actually
on
kind
the
of thought-
game.
I actually
And
kind of
everyone's just
thought
like,
right. No, I'm with you. I actually kind of thought with BlizzCon that they would maybe mention something like this, maybe have a demo of it like they did last time and build it out a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, the surprise was welcome for sure, by all means, because it is just a different take on everything. And yeah, I'm kind of with you guys. I was a little thrown off by how easy it was, but super thrilled to hear that there's a potential heroic one coming along the way. And but what sells it for me is, I mean, of course, people are going to min-max it and they're going to try to go for the best times, which is definitely cool. But honestly, even if you're not doing that, this thing is worth so much EXP points. It's not even
Yes.
funny.
It
Like
Yes,
you
really
can
is.
spend
really is.
7, 8, 9 minutes in there, get like 230k with the stim pack, and just walk out. And so that's replayability for me right there. So
And there's a
having
pretty
great time
large
with it.
selection of heroes you can play on
Yeah.
it too.
Yeah, so if there's a hero you
Twin
don't really
Blade
like
variant.
playing PvP, it's a good one to go in there and level them up to 5 or whatever you want to get them to fairly
Right.
easily. But yeah, so I was a little thrown off with how easy it was as well. That's kind of the only complaint I've seen. I think I wish, and obviously they put a lot of resources towards creating this because there's nothing else like it in game. I kind of wish they would have added a leaderboard, like visible on the brawl screen, to get kind of just give visual of people, you know, to get them in there more than just 3 times, which a lot of people still won't do. But I think there is that group of us that kind of like pushing it to see how fast we can get it, and then maybe have like been a reward for the top whatever or getting under a certain amount of time. I don't know. But
If it was a permanent mode with seasonal leaderboards with like rotating maps and rotating, I guess, mobs and ads and that kind of thing, this would sell people for life. Like that would just be its own thing
well,
forever.
Yeah.
that's the next thing. So with them putting so many resources towards this can't possibly be the only time they're going to use this, right? Like just this
Oh, no.
brawl.
Well, I feel like this was kind of like a dip your toes in the water type thing. Like, and that's why I think we're seeing a heroic version afterwards, because apparently in the data mine, that did data mine 2 difficulties. So this was a planned thing from the beginning, and it wasn't a big fanfare or anything. I think, or at least it appears like it's just more of a, let's just throw this out there and see if people like it. And I think the response is, 6.5 out of 10, 2 thumbs, way up.
10 out of 10
Alarak
bongos.
even has nothing bad to say about it.
That's
Uh,
insane.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I just I see something else coming from this going forward if it continues to go over well. I don't know. I guess we'll
And I think it
we'll have
has. So
I hope
why
it will.
not?
to- Mhm.
I would like to see WoW. We don't have a WoW map yet. Give
Oh.
us at least like a WoW raid.
Yeah,
Well,
you
they
could
can do
you
a
could
WoW.
easily do a WoW dungeon.
Yeah.
You got to do the WoW map first, and then just use those
Or
map
do them at the
assets.
same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Release the WoW map and a WoW hero, just like a big WoW event. WoW map, WoW hero, and then WoW PvE brawl. Boom.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Blizzard.
And then WoW PvE mode, and then maybe at this point we'll actually just get TBK back into WoW.
and then they'll expand from 5-man teams to flex 10 to 20 teams, so you can do
That's
flex
right.
rating, and then there'll be, mythic
Yeah,
rating
Blizzard,
looking for group.
Put enough WoW into heroes so that I don't need to go back
Hey,
to WoW.
the secret is
Oh, yeah.
this is the Battle for Azeroth is the last WoW expansion, and Heroes of the Storm is actually WoW 2. There it is.
Wow.
Heard it here
Yeah, well,
first.
I wasn't talking about the game anymore. I was literally exclaiming "Wow!"
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It works both ways. So balance patch. We had a balance patch this week, and there are some things that happened in this balance patch. There's some a few little things that happened. Zul'jin got some changes.
Yeah, that's it. That's what everyone wants to hear about.
Yeah,
Is the
Zul'jin got some
changes.
changes. Some other people
20
may have got
damage
some
off his
changes.
guillotine.
Yeah, I guess we'll start with the group of people who got the most changes here first, and that's a group you may know as supports.
Warriors. What?
Hey, Warriors did get some changes. All right,
They did.
You seen those Johanna and Sonya changes?
Yeah,
Nuts.
that Johanna poison spear nerf from 150 to 125.
Game breaking.
Sonya.
Game breaking.
No, Johanna's was
what
much more
direction-
impactful. Or Johanna's Iron Skin mana costs no more. It's free,
And now no more mana cost for Tychus's minigun either. So
Yep.
nice quality of life.
and that's
I
it.
really question Blizzard's direction on those.
Yeah, that's it.
But-
So now we can move on to the PTR. No, so supports. You got a few changes here, and we're not going to go through all of them because pretty much it's just across the board. Wave clear has been nerfed. Damage and health and healing has been nerfed by about 5%.
Yep. And health regen.
And health regen. So,
Just across the board, to be
Yep.
clear. if you haven't
Across
seen
the
these
board.
or-
and we
seen
talked
it on
about
Reddit.
this a little bit on Convert Trade last night, and somebody asked me, why do this to everyone? And they talked about it in the Q&A, which we'll get to here a little bit. But with this drastic of a change, it's easier to just do it to all of them, and then they can go back and make tweaks to others.
You can't not do it to all of
Yeah.
them. That's the kind of thing. Like if you did this to a select few or half, you would immediately make that whatever you did either unplayable or extremely adverse to being played.
Yeah,
Like,
and
this is a change you have to hit everybody with, regardless of whether it's the right thing or not. You have to do this to everyone if this is kind of your goal.
with the
And one more
exception,
thing.
because there is one exception to this, and that is Lily.
It's true.
Because they made the reworks to Lily. They said that they still weren't happy with her win rate area, so they knew buffing her here slightly wasn't gonna mess things up, as if they just tweaked everybody. But yeah, so the big thing here is the whole reason they did this is they're trying to combat the duo support meta that we are in right now, which I understand wanting to do that. I think a lot of people want to do that. I understand the wave clear. I understand the damage The two I'm questionable on is the health and healing reductions, which I'm not sure about. But that may be one of the things that it's just some supports are too hard to kill. Let's do it to all of them. We can go back and tweak some later, which we'll see. But I'm not a support main. I don't play support very often anymore. I don't have a lot of input on this besides the fact that I'm glad they're trying to do something to get rid of duo support. Whether this is right or wrong, I don't know. A lot of people aren't happy with it. A lot of people are, hey, let's wait and see. It's kind of where I'm at. TBK, where are you? I know you play support fairly often.
I do. Honestly, this is probably something that needed to happen, or at least a version of this needed to happen. Support, just for the most part across the board, were too good. And that's why we started seeing this shift into the double support meta, because taking that extra support didn't lose you enough wave clear, didn't lose you enough damage for it to have an effect. And so essentially you're getting at 3/4 of an assassin with some wave clear and then healing on top of that, which made it incredibly hard to kill things. And so like this has been a long time coming, and part of the reason this is even became a problem in the first place is honestly armor. Armor has increased the healing efficiency for whoever you're healing, and if only supports gave armor, it probably wouldn't be as big of a deal. But now that we have armor baked into certain heroes and we have armor on talents and stuff, armor basically makes your healing more worthwhile, right? And so because of this, in a lot of ways, armor is responsible for the support characters' imbalance. And I'm not saying necessarily that armor is the worst thing ever, because armor does give Blizzard a lot more tools to tweak things, tweak values, balance stuff in general. But as a result of that, and again, this has been a long time coming, healing had to be reduced across the board, and supports in general had to be made less effective, because there was too many supports that did too much. Now, I definitely don't agree with the across the board nerf, even though I know it had to happen. And as we get into the Q&A, they actually are very upfront with they are going to be reactive to whoever needs buffs, because some of these heroes, some of these support heroes will certainly need buffs, because as it is right now, the way things worked out, some of them are incredibly weak, and we have like a core group, especially the ones that still have cleanse and such, or that have the burst healing, that are going to be very good, and it could push a lot of the other heroes, support heroes, away, especially ones that couldn't solo support very well from the beginning even. And it's very hard to take a dual support now, because they lost a lot of that damage, they lost a lot of that wave clear. And for some reason, and this is probably the only change I kind of flat out disagree with, they lost health.
Yeah.
And as we've seen in the past, even small health changes, i.e. a Nubarak, can have big implications in game for survivability. And I think removing health on support characters makes them have to play much more passively, much more carefully. They're even more susceptible to poke, even more susceptible to dive. And I don't think that's necessarily a good thing, because you still want to be able to be up there and get involved potentially, depending on the support you have. But at the same time, there was several supports that just did too much. Rhaegar, of course, probably being the main offender. He lost his, and I'm gonna forget the name of it now.
Lightning shield.
the shield.
Shield lightning something.
Where it turns his lightning into a shield.
His double shield, basically.
Yeah.
Lightning bond.
There it is.
Lightning
Yes.
Bond.
There we go. There we go. Winning with talent names. Yeah, Lightning Bond. So this was a huge deal because Rhaegar used to be one of honestly the best heroes for taking camps solo, being even in a solo lane in a double support comp. And so taking that away does remove a large amount of his wave clear. And with that, a lot of the other like Stukov lurking arm damage got reduced. There's just so much just across the board damage reduction and healing reduction and whatnot that it is they Blizzard's loud and clear. We don't want you to pick dual supports hardly at all. At least that seems to be what it is. Again, right now it's kind of a sucky situation because there are some supports that are not good, that are just flat out not very good at all. But I'm giving Blizzard the benefit of the doubt. Again, this is probably something that needed to happen, and it has been a long time coming. And I hope they will be very fast and reactionary with the supports that do need that hand up again to kind of get back to where they should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with
Go ahead.
everything you said there. I just want to build on it a little bit. For one, this is definitely the right time of year to do this kind of thing. You know, HGC is in its lull. It's alongside a giant patch anyway with a bunch of other changes, so that all kind of checks out, even though this came out a little bit earlier. Clearly, they were working on all this at the same time. I do want to say, though, I mean, I think the backlash in the community is just plainly from the feels bad moment of, like, say I'm a truly a support main, and that's how I identify as myself, and I pick all the supports, and I know them all, and I know their various niches and all that sort of thing. To have my entire, I guess, identity in the game just numerically nerfed across the board does feel bad. I mean, there's no question about it. Even if, like, I can see the big picture, I still have a little bit of that feels bad moment. And
yeah, it's not a
despite-
feels good patch for support.
No,
that's definitely for sure.
And I mean, we've talked on this show so many times about how much we really did not like the duo support meta. We didn't like the group fights that came out of them, where they would clash and blow a bunch of ultimates and then just get away alive. You know, like, no one wants to watch this anyway. So I mean, I think it could be a good change, especially after the tweaking. But I mean, I get why some people are upset for sure.
Yeah. And I think one of the other big worries here, and one of the things that worries me, is just, you know, with reducing wave clear and damage, they're not going to be as big of playmakers when it comes to offense, which they, you know, there have been some that can make big offensive plays. So the worry is that for support players, support mains, that they're just going to go back to heal bots. And not be fun to play. So that is a big worry, and we'll have to see, you know, hopefully again they're going to be reactive.
That is a legitimate worry.
That is
a legitimate worry, especially with the health nerfs on top of everything else.
Mm-hmm.
It's a legitimate worry that I'm going to have to stay back, be super careful, throw out my heals a little bit, and not have much of an effect. And that's going to be that balanced tightrope that they're going to have to walk.
Yes.
When they do these reactive and subsequent updates to, and even reworks in the future to these heroes, is we need to get them to the point where solo healing is a thing. It's not worth it to take two support characters in most situations, but still give them that element of utility, fun, and I'm able to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure. The damage nerfs are a much bigger deal than the healing nerfs, I think. Because now if you do take two supports, you really, like, unless you're running some kind of hyper carry comp with a Vala or a Tracer or something maybe, you're paying for it in terms of damage, right? So that's definitely something to keep your eye on. But I honestly also think that, I mean, if you're a true blue support player out there, this could also be a chance for you to shine in a way. Because, like, if you're really good at healing, for instance, and not overhealing and timing really clutch heals, and you're already super good at your positioning and escapes and that sort of thing, where everyone else is hurting in this patch, yeah, your healing numbers aren't going to be the same as they were before, but they're still probably going to be pretty good just because you know these heroes and play them well. So, I mean, I just wanted to throw that in as a little encouragement for those out there kind of disheartened by this.
what were you
going to say, Gizmo?
I will say, now would be a good time for non-support players to start practicing support, because I think we will see a drop in people wanting to play support, and especially Hero
Ooh,
League.
yeah.
So if you get comfortable with these, that may be a good opportunity, because if you're facing where nobody wants to play support on your team, if you're good with them and can fill that, the chances are the other team's facing the same thing and may not have somebody who's up to par on these changes and stuff filling in. So while you
that's
may not
good.
be able to make the plays offensively, you'll at least be ready to go and be able to support your team. Let's see. Also, and just moving along, skipping over that.
All I
in
did
this-
was smirk. I did
balance-
smirk, so.
the balance changes here. For our first time in a balance patch, we got a hero rework. And they've led to this, talking about how they're kind of wanting to spread out reworks since, when was it? Alan DeBerry coming out saying, there's a lot of heroes coming out. They're wanting to slow down on heroes and just spread things out overall.
And they're wanting to give their reworks like their time in the sun
Yes.
as well. They don't want the reworks to be overshadowed by it's Kel'Thuzad and a few other guys.
Yeah.
And to do that, they've actually developed an entirely new pipeline for releasing these. And apparently Sergeant Hammer is the first such that they've done this with.
Uh-huh.
So that's cool.
And this is a big rework. So first and
Yes.
foremost, they moved her siege mode to her trait. That's toggleable now instead of being the E, and they've given her a new ability on E. And this is the biggest problem with this rework, I think. I'm really happy they decided to do this, to give her another ability. But I think this was the wrong one to do. So just to read real quick, it is Neo Steel Plating. You activate to gain 25 armor for 2 seconds. If you're in siege mode, you increase this armor to 50. And it's on a 12-second cooldown and costs 30 mana.
Dude, she's a tank now.
She is. So this is really interesting. I tested this out earlier today. I didn't have support on my team. I apologize to my team for not being a super team player here, but I was really wanting to test this. I was pretty much just split pushing the entire game and waiting for people to rotate on me and seeing how long I could last. And the answer is too long. Like I was 1v1ing like Vala's and stuff, because when they made changes to her siege mode to where it upgrades her concussive blast, her spider mines. There's a talent
It does more damage now. It actually does more damage in siege mode. Like the whole meme of don't siege up, you're not doing any more damage. That's actually not true anymore. Like you are doing more damage in siege mode now.
There's talents that you can also use to increase your damage even more.
Yes.
That reset charges when you attack structures and all kinds of stuff. So
yeah, well, and that's the thing I went with Maelstrom Rounds at 1, which you activate to increase the attack damage by 40% for 5 seconds. You have 3 charges on 90-second cooldown. Basic attacks in siege mode against enemy structures reduce the cooldown by 5 seconds. That's a lot more burst damage that you can put out on one person.
It's really crazy when you put it all together, because you have siege mode now, plus in siege mode, in regular mode you get 25 armor when you use your new thing, your plating. In siege mode you get 50 armor. So now you have 50 armor in siege mode on a 12-second cooldown with extra damage and graduating range at level 7 now. It is absolutely bonkers.
Yeah.
I tried the new hover siege though at 7, where you can move in siege mode. It's been reduced from 50% movement speed to 25. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, there's no reason to take that now.
You
might
move
just take
you move
graduating
in
range.
centimeters.
But and again, there's a ton of talent changes here. We don't need to go through everything. But overall, I think this did increase the skill cap for her and the skill floor to be effective with her, and now actually needing to move between siege mode to do more damage. But I just think it was a wrong move to give her armor, especially 50 armor potentially on a 12-second cooldown.
It's a lot of armor.
It's a lot. It's a lot. She can pretty much negate any ult that you throw at her. She can save that if you have especially depending on what support you have. You don't have to worry about popping that until you see people dive in on you. And then again, there's talents to make you unstoppable and talents to reduce your boosters. She's just really hard to kill. Really hard to kill.
And the other issue is, of course, the muscle memory of thinking that hitting E is going to put you into siege mode and not getting used to the D key yet. I have heard the tip that you could swap those key binds, which could be helpful to some people on her. But I mean, I don't know. Like, I considered that, but then in the end, I kind of thought to myself, I want to get used to the new way of doing it. So, but if that's giving you guys a lot of trouble out there, that's something you could think about.
Yeah. So I don't know. Do you guys overall, do you feel and they're pointing out in chat here, they did take away first aid and things like that and replaced it with healing from auto attacks in siege mode.
But that healing's pretty good,
but
especially if you go this kind of auto attack.
So the big thing with her right now, and again, post 7, especially with the graduating range, is that if you can get into siege mode, build up your graduating range a little bit, then you can get healing, you have extra damage, you have a bigger knockback, you have the better mines, and you have 50 armor on a 12-second cooldown. Any assassin, for the most part, before they even get to you, is going to be taking ridiculous amounts of damage.
Yeah.
Like you're talking, you need a double initiate or a tank to even get in on her and threaten her right now. And that's where I think her strong point is. Whereas before, getting into siege mode in almost every circumstance was a dumb idea. Now it's an amazing idea.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it feels fun. Like, she's not a hero that I've taken up much, except for she was the first hero I ever played. Fun fact. But yeah, I'll try it out some.
Yeah, and I have never been great with Hammer. I'm still not great with her, but I've played against her a lot over the last week in PTR, and now that it's live, and I don't know. She feels stronger, harder to kill for me, but I will say I don't know. It is a higher skill floor, so they may not be as effective.
We'll have to feel it out.
I
mean, it's just the first day this is out, but first impression is definitely she can be very strong, especially quick match uncoordinated. I have yet to, because it just came out today. I've only gotten to play 1 or 2 games before we did the podcast. It might be a little different trying her in a little more organized play, but quick match especially, she seems very powerful.
Yep. And regarding the supports, there was also a developer blog posted that goes more into depth over why they were making those changes, so you guys can check that out. That'll be in the show notes if you are intrigued on that. The PTR is still going strong with the 2018 gameplay changes. Pretty much, I think the only thing that's been added on, there may have been some smaller changes. Hanzo is now in the PTR. And I will say he still feels bad to me.
Yeah.
He still feels real bad.
What about him? You just not like the
it's
feel of
weird.
it, or is it damage?
I just don't know where he's going to, what his role is.
That's okay. They don't get it in Overwatch either. So
Well,
it fits
hey, I love
completely.
Hanzo in Overwatch. I think he's a blast to play.
Yeah, totally cool.
But,
Yeah.
but it's just it doesn't feel good. Like this is, I think, legit the first hero to where I've just been like, I very much dislike this hero. I actually I explained everything I like about this hero on Twitter on my phone, which means I was still limited to 140 characters, and I wasted a lot of characters. I like his Stormbow, his Q. I think that's a good talent or a good
Yeah, it's fun
ability.
that you can move while
Yeah,
you're charging that up.
I
That
think
is
it's
kind
great.
of fun.
I like Dragon's Arrow. I think that's a great long range stun, and I love the what's it called, like play of the game. I think at level 20, that's the talent for Dragon's Arrow, which makes it to where you can teleport to where that is. So it's a global teleport.
It's a cool talent.
It's really cool.
It's a
Or
really cool talent.
if you hit somebody, you can activate it, and then you teleport to that area, jump back, and also shoot AoE around that area and stun every target that's within it. So it's a really cool talent. But the Sonic Arrow, cool. I would be fine with that if Scatter Arrow was not how Scatter Arrow is. I just really dislike Scatter Arrow. It's I was gonna give it a chance again after, they were going through the gameplay teaser and stuff and explaining, how you just got to get in corridors, spread it around. It's not easy to use. It doesn't do much damage. And the situations to where it's going to do that much damage like that, I think are very, very low. It comes down to just there are a lot of characters, I think, that do the same thing he can do, just much easier and better. So
that's kind of
He
my
almost
feel
feels
on
like
him.
a Kmart Vala, if you will, or like the RC Cola of Vala.
Kmart.
But that said, that said, I did like his feel a lot better than I thought I would. And I mean, I have only tried him on one PTR AI game because for some reason the queue times are a little long in the PTR.
They're real long.
Maybe you could elaborate, TBK. But despite that, so I mean, I did like the feel of him overall. Scatter arrow is definitely weird in that you almost have to have it ricochet before it does anything. Like you can't just use it as line nuke. But like, I still haven't fully figured out his auto attacks because it seems like he tracks on the target that you've just move targeted or however you do it, but then loses it somehow. I mean, it's not like Tracer in that you can just kind of hone in on somebody, or Lucio, who just smoothly moves around but hones in on somebody. I feel like I almost am stutter stepping, but not stutter stepping and stopping between the stutter steps, if that makes any sense. So I don't know. There's some weird stuff in there, but I love these heroes that just move smoothly and just cycle through their abilities, and I think that they could build on that some and maybe change a few of his abilities around a bit to make them a bit more exciting, but I don't know.
So there's a comment in chat here for Chaos. So Jeff commented that they really regret that Overwatch can foot shot or do the foot shoot with his scatter arrow in Overwatch, and they wanted more of the corridor feel. So that's how it is in Heroes. However, I think the foot shooting would work better in Heroes. You can nerf the damage if you really need to. Also make it be able to bounce off terrain when you want to try and wrap around corners. And do things to where it's like it's bonus damage if every arrow hits one hero. It's not like that would still be an easy thing to do, because you can sidestep things like that to make sure not everything's hitting. But that's
the feedback I gave at BlizzCon.
Yeah, you need to be able to shoot it on the ground, I think. It's too circumstantial.
Because I was talking to one of the devs about this, and it was just, HOTS doesn't have a ground. And it's like, well, why don't you just make it reactivatable? And the reactivation could be just you pointing it at the ground at a certain location. I mean, it just Scatter Arrow to me feels way too situational for a basic ability.
Well,
it has a very weird feel. I know they added that terrain highlights, which is nice, but especially with quick cast, it's incredibly hard to line up exactly to get the bounce you want. And in some maps, it is incredibly less useful than it is in other maps, which is really weird feel for a basic ability, right? And so it's just his whole kit feels, I think, slow. He's got the super slow auto attack. He's got his Q charges what it feels like super slow for the amount of damage it does.
Except you can move while it does. I think that's what they're
it's true, but it's not fast moving or anything either. No, yeah. It's a skill shot, but it doesn't feel like it hits very hard. That's a numbers tweak, whatever. The W, it could just be that Hanzo's not the character for me. Maybe some people will really like it, but the scatter shot just doesn't feel good.
Yeah,
I feel like the reactivate on scatter shot would help it feel so much better. Even if you nerf the damage a little bit when you reactivated W and gave it full, or maybe a little bonus damage if you did it off terrain. Whatever you need to do, right? Like, I'm okay with you tweaking the ability, but I want more control over it, and it feels very hard to control.
Well, and I don't understand the whole HOTS has no floor thing, because it does. I mean, look at Junkrat's Q, though. You choose to shoot that, and you choose the impact area where it's going to hit
And
the
where
ground
it
and they continue to
bounces
bounce.
and everything.
So you should
Yeah.
be able to do the same thing with the arrow. The other thing people are complaining about is his trait natural agility, the controls and how it feels weird. I have seen a lot of feedback of that on Twitter. It does feel a little weird sometimes. I think it should just have like show a range of where you can jump, and then actually just clicking in that range, but it has to be over impassable terrain instead of clicking on the unpathable terrain. It can feel a little weird at some points and not feel like it's working correctly. I don't know. And the other thing is people not understanding why his is unpathable terrain, but Genji's is whenever, and that it feels like a nerf.
Well, I can tell you
is.
why.
Well,
I can
it
tell you the
absolutely
answer
is
on that
because he's ranged. His job
Yeah.
is to stay back and poke. Genji gets up in the business, so he needs that escape, which I still think is really strong on Genji. But it does make sense to me that Hanzo's has guidelines that you have to follow to use it, because you shouldn't.
Well,
be up
that's
there.
his trait is probably the hardest to translate into heroes, because
For sure.
there's literally no such thing as wall climbing in heroes. Like there's no such thing. So this is kind of their approximation of it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
take
to
it for
answer-
what it is.
To answer the question, why is Genji's better than Hanzo's? It's because Genji is better than Hanzo. I mean, have you guys seen the Dragon cinematic? Genji had the moral high ground and almost cut his brother's throat, but then chose not to because he is also the better person in that regard as well. So he's just better.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I kind of wish maybe it would feel better if it worked like more wall climb, because they have that technology built in because of wall ride with Lucio. Instead of it being activatable, just be something that's on a cooldown that you can, once you're clicking on terrain, like you can cross over terrain. I don't know. That might,
Yeah,
feel weird
I don't
too,
know.
but-
Like
because that'd be more like his
As-
wall climb from Overwatch, anyways.
as is though, I'm not a fan of his kit at all, and not saying it's necessarily bad, but he, after playing with him at BlizzCon and then playing with him some more on the PTR, he does not feel like a character that I will enjoy personally, and I'm struggling. And maybe he may need some more numbers tweaks and stuff. Probably does,
Yes.
but it's not a character. It's a character that I have a hard time seeing where he would fit, where another hero wouldn't just be better.
Agreed.
What I have a hard time seeing too is the fact that we're going to get all the Hanzo mains over into heroes, and then we're going to give them voice chat. It's going to get rocky, people.
Yeah.
And as Chaos points out in chat, I will agree. He does have probably one of the best design talent trees that has come out lately. Like, he has a lot of really good talents, a lot of really thought out talents, but it hurts when the base kit just doesn't feel good.
Agreed. But yeah, we'll keep our eye on him.
I'm gonna try him. I'm excited to try him when he goes to live in some more legitimate games, and see if it feels any better. See if I can get over the hump or whatever. I'm still open to it. I'm still open to them. I want to, because I there's very few heroes I just flat out don't enjoy, but you're gonna have some of those.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing.
It's true. There are other changes in PTR. There were a few changes to Nova and Valera, but that's just some balance stuff while they're kind of working on stealth things with the stealth changes that are going to be coming out, which I guess is a good time to just kind of talk about our impressions on the stealth changes so far, what you like, what you don't like. Do you think overall it's good? For myself, I don't really play stealth characters that much. I've played them a few times in the PTR, and overall I do like this new version. One of the points they brought up at BlizzCon, which I actually think is very true, is the fact that while you can be seen right now, you no longer have to question whether you can be seen or not. Whenever you're trying to sneak
True.
up on somebody or you're wandering around in lane before, you were always like, I don't know if they can see me or not. And it's a lot of times you think they can't, and then they turn around, boom, hit you with a skill shot. Now you know they can see you, but they have to hit you with a skill shot. So it's actually easier to kind of react and juke those skill shots whenever they're coming out.
As someone who is a big stealth player, though, it is a very hard mindset to get into, and it's gonna take
knowing they can.
It's gonna take some time to switch my mindset over to them, just knowing that they can always see me.
Some of the heroes, though, make up for this in mobility. I mean, I got on there and I played Zeratul just because I really haven't in a while, and I mean, it was just against AI yet again, but I don't know. He still felt okay. I kind of like the new heroic. I don't think it's going to be better than Void Prison, but that's just because Void Prison is one of the best abilities in the game.
Many pros would disagree with you.
Well, we will see.
Interestingly enough,
you can do crazy stuff. I was
you
doing
can
this
do
auto attack
crazy
build
stuff
where like you have to cycle through ability auto attack, and then just do massive bursts on people. So yeah, it's I don't know, but the stealth itself. What I really do like about it, though, is that whole standing still and getting true invisibility feature.
Uh-huh.
I'm thinking about, ganking in bushes, being that Valeera who gets the perfect stun off right as someone walks by, or having that surprise factor. Because, I mean, this whole thing was all about the fact that with the old eye test idea, some people could see the shimmer, some people couldn't. Pro players just could, so there's almost no change in that regard for them. Other than the standing still thing, which true invisibility could be useful. So from a philosophical standpoint, I agree with it. And I don't know. I mean, I've got to play against more people and really get in there and totally feel it out. But I'm not a hater. I think he'll be okay.
I think Zeratul's in a pretty good spot. I love what they did with Valeera. I don't know if it's there yet as far as making her viable, but the teleport range and stuff, it feels good. What do you have you been playing Valeera, TBK?
No, go ahead and talk. I'll have thoughts. I'll have thoughts after.
Okay.
I was gonna say I like what they did with Samuro. Nova's the one I haven't really played very much at all, so I don't really know how she feels. I feel like the standing still 1.5 second complete invisibility can set her up from some good snipes and stuff. I like that they built Snipe Master in. But yeah, what were you gonna say? What were you getting excited about, TBK?
I mean, just across the board, it all of these stealth characters, because I've played quite a bit of them on live, and they just feel better. Again, there's a small part of there's a small part of me that's definitely going to miss the eye test a little bit, because I played so much of them that I just kind of naturally looked for it, and it wasn't a huge deal for the most part in games. But it has allowed them to really flesh out a lot of the stealthy characters. Nova, I really love. I love the Snipe Master being built in. That's a great thing. I love that Holo Decoy actually does a little bit of damage by default now and can be used to interrupt objectives or actually do stuff like that. They gave it a smarter AI, which is really cool. So there's a lot of really fun stuff around her. Valeera can be an absolute monster because she can get a teleport on any of her 3 stealth abilities after being in stealth for a short time. It is absolutely nuts.
Sounds nuts.
I think people are underestimating how impactful she could potentially be. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing HGC and seeing if any of the teams pull her out and use her a little bit, because I think she's got quite a bit of potential. Samuro feels like how he should have played from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. Like, it's nice. So much more intuitive right now. You hit your Q and you'll actually appear at the spot or in the direction of the spot your mouse cursor is now. So you can actually kind of position yourself when you use clones, which is really, really cool.
Choose feels which great. Clone you are, essentially.
Yeah. You have the baseline clone swap now, which feels really good as well, because it's kind of sucked to have to go into Illusion Master to do it and to especially for someone who's not super micro heavy like me, to hit the 1, 2, the all button. This is like, that's one of the reasons I don't play Vikings. I just don't do that well. That's just not my thing. And so having that base functionality in where I can swap on it's a longish cooldown, but it's to not make it ridiculously overpowered, but it feels really good. And so just all his changes, and then some of the things that pro players will be able to do with that new Zeratul ult is going to be absolutely bonkers, and I cannot wait to see it.
You know, if they made these heroes more fun to compensate for the, if you can call it a stealthy nerf, that's cool with me. I just like fun heroes. And you know what? I wonder if this also opens up, because, you know, stealth heroes were such a hot button issue for certainly an X number of the community, for sure, for so long of a time, that maybe now that it's not as big a deal, the stealthing itself, I mean, maybe they can release more stealthy heroes a little bit more liberally. Get us some Maiev Shadow Song in the game or something.
Yeah, and that would make sense, because I imagine this would make it easier to create heroes without having to worry about making their abilities too overpowered with the
Right.
stealthiness that it used to be. But I'm excited for it. And again, I played a lot of Valeera when she first came out, but you rarely see her in game at these points. And have we ever seen her in pro play?
Psalm used her
Like when she
a
first
few
came out?
times, yeah, here and there. But that was, I think, mostly pre-nerf.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, she hasn't seen much at all. But I really like her. I think she's got a really fun design,
Mm-hmm.
and she's
She
fun to play.
feels
So
she's
I'm
one of the
hoping this
best
will help.
feeling when it comes to like a direct translation for a class from WoW. I think she really does feel like a rogue, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right. So we did have the Reddit Q&A that was today. Or was that yesterday? It was today. Right?
Today.
Yeah. Over the 2018 gameplay patch, and there was a lot. We'll have some discussion points on some of these, but we're just kind of trying to get through some of the information so you guys don't have to go through and dig that stuff out, because TBK did it for you. He dug out all the points.
Excellent work on this.
Because I
yet
love
again.
you guys. And because it's really interesting. There's
It
actually
is, yeah.
all these Q&As, there's usually a lot of really good stuff in here.
There
so.
is. And I love just going through and even seeing the discussion points like after the Blizzard responses are usually really good. But we'll start out here with a Varian question. Varian will be getting a rework at some point, they said. And I believe there was, I believe there was another part of this question that had something to do with multi-class that was just kind of ignored by the Blizzard response, and they just said yes, Varian will be getting a rework. Which brings the question, I think it was, are you happy with how multi-class are? Which is interesting, because I think we've all been wanting the priest multi-class, but maybe they're not liking how multi-class is working out. Maybe it's too hard of a balance thing to tackle. So I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like Varian is really not at a terrible point. Like his biggest issues is his level 4 tier.
Mm-hmm.
That is literally his biggest issue right now. If they could figure out something around that, it's gonna feel really weird, because I have a feeling they're gonna get rid of the invulnerability of Shield Wall when they do the rework, and it's gonna feel really weird.
Yeah,
because that's kind of almost so core into his thing. So I don't know. I don't want them to do a rework.
We'll see.
I love my Varian as he is.
As long as they
really
keep
good
his flavor. Like, you have to have all 3 specs of warrior in him, or I'll be upset. Because our other warrior has none of them, I guess. I don't know, he throws people.
How bad would it feel if they just did a crazy thing where they're like, look, multi-class isn't working, we're just splitting him into 3 heroes?
Or they just turn him into one hero.
Yeah, just pick one. That'd feel bad too. They would have. You'd think they'd have to go Twin Blades if they did that, because that's the thing.
The best one.
Yeah, it is the best.
But they're also they may do another active ability in a base kit at some point, like Zul in his bone armor. But they talked about how they don't necessarily do that on purpose. They like being able to fit everything into the QWER, but when it makes sense at some points, then they're fine with doing that. They do have a brand new pipeline for reworks, Hammer being the first, that allows them to be more flexible with the releases, like the balance patch we just had today, which is good. So expect to kind of see more of those, hopefully, where we'll actually have chances to check out a hero rework without a hero release and 2 more reworks.
Yeah, I really like that.
Mm-hmm.
Me too.
I'm glad they're moving to that. They also said, and this was kind of interesting, they want to add indicators in the future for the performance-based matchmaking of what you actually did well to earn more points. Mm-hmm. And this is really cool because this could be a great learning area. Is, oh wow, I did really well in these areas, so I got some more points, which means I should work on some of the other areas that I didn't get bonus points in.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the idea behind that. They also talked about like niche heroes. Niche and general heroes are good, but they did say they may have made too many heroes niche, and they're working on some more generalist heroes too to widen the meta a bit.
Yeah. I agree
Totally
with
understandable.
That, yeah, their
That
point
makes
with
sense.
that were niche heroes, you can't draft early. They're always counterable, so they don't get played a lot, even if they're good, to where, generalist heroes can really be drafted at any point, and even if it's counterable, in most points, if they're balanced correctly, it comes out to skill, which is nice, and I do agree
Well,
with
and some of them are so map dependent too that you would just never see them on any other, and that's
Yeah.
not fun. You're leaving it up to RNG to play your favorite hero.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
I agree.
for sure. And this next one was actually a question I asked, and I actually wrote an article about this just yesterday. It was about PTR and getting more people onto PTR because, let's be honest, it's an exercise in patience if you play any other day than the day the PTR comes out. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, the queue times are nuts. I was actually going to ask you, did you write that entire article while you were waiting in queue at the PTR?
I totally could have.
Yeah.
I totally could have. Well, they said this does come up every now and then because the folks we can get on to the more folks we can get to PTR, the more feedback we can collect before going live. At the end of the day, though, this falls under the eternal question of what do we deprioritize, and we feel like right now our attention is better spent developing features for the live game rather than the PTR. Having said that, we would like to do more special PTR events such as this one in the future. I'm sure we'll keep discussing on our end. If we can find a good solve, it will end up on the PTR eventually. And I completely agree. I think for normal PTR, I mean, a lot of it is just find some major bugs. It's not necessarily balance things because you can balance after the fact, and unless it's something game breaking, it won't be a big deal. But for things like this, for things like the huge scaling change they did a while back, that was a gigantic patch. For things like this 2018 gameplay update, they need to get incentive to get people over into the PTR for some serious testing, because I want to play PTR right now. I want to try out these new changes. I want to try out the new laning stuff with several heroes, but I just do not have
people.
And against people, but I just do not have the time to commit to 600, 700, 800 plus second queues to get into one game that is probably going to be terribly comped.
Yeah.
And so there needs to be incentives. And I mean, Blizzard threw this on the PTR for 3 weeks. That to me alone says that this is a big deal. This is important. So we need some incentivization to come along with these gigantic updates to say, here, go to PTR and test, and then we'll give you some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's worth prioritizing something. I messed up that word terribly, but you get the idea. Even if we cut one hero out of the rotation and we had a longer break between two heroes, this could just be such a good thing for the game in the long term, and would have to help them with like getting good data about what's working, what isn't, finding bugs.
Yeah. I feel like it'd be worth it.
Well, that's cutting a hero from the rotation. That's not necessarily the same team. Like the team that would be, it depends on what they're wanting to do, of what it could be impacting. But I do agree. Like normal patches, not a big deal. For this patch, definitely would have been nice. Like the really the main thing I want is just the experience carryover. Have my levels the same level. And I know people were talking about, well, if you do that, then people are going to be crying for experience and hero carryover and stuff for different regions. which I don't really agree with. I wouldn't care if they did it, but I think they do that for a reason. There's a reason to do it. And in PTR, I don't really think there's a reason because you want
just
people on there.
something to let people know, or at least make it feel like they're not, quote, wasting their time
Yeah.
on PTR.
Even cosmetics, like we're seeing in
Because
chat,
you're never wasting
skins,
your time on
portraits.
PTR.
Mm-hmm.
But it definitely can feel like that because it has no tangible live benefits.
Or shoot, make it where everything in the store is unlocked on PTR, to where you can try out the skins to see if you like them, like the effects and stuff, and you can go purchase them in live. I don't know.
Yeah, could be fun. You can kind of do that in try mode, but it's weird to just go in there and look at a skin. I may as well go to the YouTube video. But
Yep.
Yep. All right, so there's of course more here in the Q&A. So they specifically addressed, why they pushed the support changes this week as opposed to waiting for the full Big On patch with Hanzo. There were a couple major reasons why they decided. They knew it was potentially going to have large balance ramifications, and they needed a window of time to collect data and react to the support changes in isolation of the gameplay changes that are coming in shortly. They didn't want to throw a large-scale rebalance into this game while HGC was going on, kind of like I alluded to earlier, which totally makes sense to me. And then when evaluating the release options for these changes, this week was their last golden opportunity that addressed those considerations. So, yeah, I don't think the timing was bad. I mean, it's kind of like a ripping off a Band-Aid kind of thing. Like, there's never a great time to do it. So,
Yeah.
sure, But yeah, I mean, obviously with the HGC timing, that totally makes sense. If this had dropped like right before BlizzCon, no. Anyway, let's see. So the target info panel that was shown at BlizzCon is still in development and should be in the game within the next few months. So good stuff there. And then they're also planning to communicate things like Diablo's soul count or any sort of baseline quest in general on the tab screen. They're not sure where they're at currently, but they're hopefully coming out with soon TM changes with that regard. So, yeah,
Soon
could be
TM.
good on those heroes. Yeah, they used a lot of soon TM in this whole Q&A.
Unfortunately, they did.
Yes.
And the next point they made, we also already talked about, is just they discussed picking and choosing which supports to change. Just they decided to do the blanket changes, and they'll be able to go back and make updates to characters that were nerfed too hard or not nerfed enough, things like that. There are unfortunately no current updates on the clan system other than it has not been scrapped and it's a sizable update they want to get right. So this is very saddening, but at the same time, it's sounding like it's going to be a pretty big thing, which is good.
It does.
And I'm really
Yeah,
excited
I like the
for it.
sound of that. At
It
least.
sounds really good. But yeah, no idea when we're going to get that. They did no TMs in that answer, which means
If they are working on it, though, yeah, not anytime soon. But if they are working at it, and if they're looking to get it right, I think we need to stir the pot and start the community discussion on this sooner than later, just to kind of build the ground rules of what do we want as a community for the clan system. So I feel like we need to dedicate an entire segment to that later on at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Some light episode, not this one. There's some stuff this week.
Is there ever a light episode?
No,
We've had like
there
two,
really
I
isn't.
think. I don't know. They're not currently planning on making any changes till Sylvanas, or really any of the specialists until they've had a good look at the new data and how everything settles from the changes. But kind of going back, they are prepared, and it sounds like, I don't know if they have like reworks and tweaks like in the pipeline ready to go, but it sounds like they have their eye on some stuff they think might need changing, that they'll be ready to push out if that does occur. So, yeah.
Yeah. Another interesting note, they said they are okay with having some passive abilities. And Raynor, mains rejoice. They are looking to do a Raynor update at some point. It is confirmed, not when, but it's coming, which will likely give him an active or a passive active or something with the update instead of just the passive E. So that's good.
They should probably
and
give
then-
him 50 armor on a 13-second cooldown.
And then from a maps perspective, they are looking to tweak the power of the Volskaya mech, and they actually have a version in testing right now, which is good. As that is probably the weakest point of that map. Like, I do really like Volskaya Foundry. That is a great map, but the objective mech is definitely a little lacking.
Maybe it's going to let all 5 people in and it'll just wreck the lane.
It'll become a Zord.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And then this is also a big one. The Hanamura change will be major. And they use this wording. They actually said it's not a little thing. It's a major change. Expect it to play very differently than it did before.
Yeah, that's exciting.
So I'm actually very curious and pretty excited about what they're cooking up on Hanamura.
My prediction is kind of the tug of war, where there's one objective that spawns and you have to guide it to their side. They have to guide it to your side. So it forces team fights. It's not splitting teams. That's my prediction. As far as the main objective, I don't know what they're going to do as far as merc camps or the crazy little minions that push once you get the keep down. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I'm excited too. It'll be interesting. I just can't wait to see what it is, frankly.
Yeah.
Anyway, so going on, they said that in regard to some healers not being able to solo heal at a high level in the first place, some healers were pushed to become overly specialized, and while they could solo heal, it's true they weren't as optimal as some of the other well-rounded healers. This is something that they're going to be keeping in mind as they continue to make changes to those characters, and they're going to make sure that each feels unique and special, but isn't crippled when facing certain compositions. So great, you're gonna nerf all the healers and homogenize them. That's cool. Good job. No, but this is interesting. Yeah, I mean, as a player who, I mean, I'm not a support main, but I've certainly played my fair share of supports. I'm excited about just making more of them viable because, yeah, I agree. Some of the ones that don't heal as well are still really fun to play. Tyrander, good times. Let's see, what else did they say here? They'd like to do a pass on specialists as well, to see if they can make them both feel less frustrating to play against and more viable for various team compositions and make them more competitive. So I can agree with that. Yeah.
Because there aren't. Like, specialists,
yeah,
just, other than 1 or 2 of them, specialists just are non-existent in competitive play.
Yep. Maybe we should give them all 50 armor on a 13-second cooldown.
Hey, you know what? Why is his name blanking on me right now? Was on Naventic, retired, played as Medan.
Yeah.
Long hair, wore the hand sock thingies.
Arthelon?
Arthelon. He's back.
Arthelon is back.
Maybe we'll see some more
Heroes
Asmodean.
Hearth now.
It's
Yep.
possible. It could happen. It could happen. All right, let's see. They also said that as of right now, they're in the middle of tiering talent abilities. And while it's harder to design and balance, they agree with the community that whenever they can, mixing talent themes should happen, since it makes for more interesting heroes. If you look at Muradin's rework, for example, they purposely kept Perfect Storm at level 1 and Healing Static at 13 for this reason, even though the other talents on those tiers are themed differently. They've said that they're going to create more talent builds, and they're more wary of having too many talents that directly synergize with one another. So that's kind of cool. Builds on diversity there. They've said that they still see a lot of value in consolidating tiers when they think it should happen, as there are some heroes where we feel it's necessary to do so. So that makes sense. I mean, sometimes you just have to hit the tier where you have different CC options or like the different versions of cleanse or something like that. And obviously, if you have 2 of those and then one thing that helps you through wave clear, you're probably still going to choose cleanse, right? So I get the need to do that. And it's good to hear that they're thinking about all these things.
Yeah,
and not surprising.
As good as it feels to have talents that synergize really well with each other, it does feel like those pretty much turn into heroes that have one build and maybe another build in certain situations. So as much as I like them, I would love to have more diversity in my build choices throughout a game.
Agreed. And the ones that have clear-cut builds like that are less fun to go over when we do.
Yeah.
Like, I think Alex Straza was that way. It's like, if you want to do the Q build, take the Q talents. If you want to do the E build, take the E talents. There you go.
Yep, pretty much.
Yep.
When it comes to the new globe changes, healing globe changes, they're going to take a wait and see approach on those to see if they need any fixing. They feel, though, and I kind of agree with them, that it's not going to be much of an issue. The main concern here was globe, collecting talents. And their discussion was, yeah, you have more globes that you have the opportunity to get, but it's also easier for you to lose your own globe. And when it comes to like Mana Addict for Kill Thos and stuff, like he's not really good at pushing up. So even if you're clearing their globe, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a smart idea to go over and grab it. So I actually think it's going to be all right, but they are, waiting to see if that does need changing. For the 2018 gameplay updates, I mentioned this earlier for some of the specialists, but they do have a reactionary patch scheduled to address things that come up just to be on the safe side. Wall changes. Why the wall changes? They felt that the removal of footprints is better for the game, as evidenced by the removal of standalone towers. They eat up space in an isometric environment, which with indirect controls, they often eat attack clicks. It's unintuitive to have structures with footprints that minions will never clean up. Walls provide vision, and we have no way of communicating this. I understand it's easily solved by other solutions. It promotes degenerative gameplay for heroes like Illidan, Kel'Thuzad, Chen, etc., who are able to abuse walls when the opposing team has no recourse. On top of this, there are situations where these heroes need these structures to be up in order to perform escapes, combos, etc., and if an ally of these heroes does the right thing and kills them, it becomes a point of contention amongst team members. I don't believe it should ever be a wrong decision to kill enemy structures. The design intent behind walls is to provide an initial safe area for the base region. Once the base is no longer safe, there's no reason for them to exist. I agree with this.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
And here's the thing. I said something to the contrary, I think it was last week, and I do still kind of like that there was some play around, leave the wall up so that Illidan can jump to it and that sort of thing. But the one line in this response that sold me was, I don't believe it should ever be a wrong decision to kill enemy structures. Alone, I'm sold.
You're right, and there was a
they
comment.
They made a lot of good points.
There was a comment on this after that was like, well, why don't you just make it to where your team can also destroy your wall? Because it's a good example. Heroes like Chen and Illidan, if they leave those up, there's absolutely nothing you can do about it because you cannot clear those yourself. Which I agreed with, but then there was another response that made sense, and I don't remember what it was. But overall, after reading through this thread, I do agree with it, and it makes sense to me.
I'm sold.
Yep. On the hero front, Kerrigan is reasonably high on our list of characters we want to do a talent update for. That's cool. As all things, they'd love to give a timeline, but it's not something we're currently working on, so it's a little ways off. For you Chen mains out there, they actually said they have a paper rework for Chen on the table, and it's currently being discussed. And what that means is it's basically we have the broad idea of what we want to do. We just haven't implemented it in game to start testing it yet. So it's coming, but again, that one's probably a little further off as well. And we talked about this a little earlier. They went into a little more detail about why they removed Lightning Bond versus just only making it castable on heroes. They said this would have accomplished a lot of our goals too, but they ultimately decided to go with removing the talent because we were trying to reduce the damage dealt by supports and felt that the increase of damage available in a team fight is still more than they're comfortable with him having. They'll continue to evaluate the talent's place, though, as they know it was a fan favorite.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Let's see. They've also pointed out that they've considered releasing maps in different modes to start, but then decided against it in the long run, and that they just think the best way for us to get the most balanced map as soon as possible is to get it in the hands of the players, which you could do through PTR and incentivization, even better. Anyway, they do point out that players find very different strategies and styles of play in all modes of play, and that all checks out. It's in the players' hands that they can instantly look at millions of hours of data over a very short span, and it's the only way to really get a solid grasp on what's going on. So let's see. They also pointed out they rarely, if ever, make balance changes to open up design space for future heroes, which I think is interesting. So they're working with what they have as opposed to, clearly they're thinking ahead when it comes to like their release cadence and
sure. And they're probably talking to the designers.
Yeah.
I'm sure the live team talks to the designers like, what have you got coming? And stuff as far as talents and abilities and stuff like that. But it's nice to know they're not going to sacrifice the uniqueness of one character just because a new one's coming.
Yeah. Exactly. And then the last one I want to mention here is they do want to take a look at Medivh's talents in the future, which, again, talk about someone who has a kind of cookie cutter build these days. Makes sense to me.
Yep. They talked about why Lily got buffs when the rest of the supports got nerfs when it came to the actual healing aspects. And as I mentioned, it was because Lily had a low win rate even after the changes, but they also went on to say there's probably more tuning to be done with Alexstrasza, as well as a lot of supports after these changes go live and they get more data. They're also planning to do a rework on some support characters in the future, looking for ways to make their healing mechanics more interactive. This goes with the heal bot discussion we were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily mean more skill shot healing, but ideally your heals are not always a simple point and click for maximum value. Providing more avenues for mastery growth will help players have a larger impact on the match. An example that popped up into my mind that I think could be kind of cool when it comes to point and click heals, like Uther, for example, is to build in some sort of mechanic to where the closer you are, the more healing is done.
That's fun.
You can sit back, get some light heals off, but when it comes down to business, risking yourself, your own life and stuff to get out there to keep your team up and continue the fight. Sounds kind of cool. A little more skill involved. I don't know.
And have that honest, squishier healer too, to where like you have to get out of position and risk it a little bit. That's kind of fun.
You could do it with like Malfurion, to where maybe they get more initial healing from the heal over time. I don't know. Things like that.
Yeah. As they've mentioned before in previous Q&As, they don't feel like every hero has to be seen at a competitive level. They're actually really happy when unique strategies show up every once in a while, but the needs of esports and quick match can be vastly different. Beyond just balance for esports, we also want to be sure that watching the hero is fun and they showcase the player skill, which that's a good mentality to have, that not every hero has to be usable for competitive necessarily, but every hero has to be fun. And I like that. And this one was kind of interesting, as it was just kind of a tease, but someone basically mentioned something with Medivh, Diablo, and the Lost Vikings, and there was a blue response, a teasing blue response that said, one of the heroes listed above is currently in the process of getting a rework.
So Medivh or Lost Vikings? Who do you think?
I would say
Medivh is
from the comments above, it doesn't sound like Medivh was on the table quite yet, which makes me think it's going to be Diablo or Lost Vikings. And Lost Vikings do kind of seem like they're due for a talent.
Yeah, I
upgrade.
I think Diablo's I like how Diablo feels right now.
Yeah,
maybe I just really
might
like
need
the skin,
a little more talent diversity, but my guess is Diablo or Lost Vikings is gonna be the one. And then as
Vikings
well,
would
and
be
this,
cool.
yeah, I mean they haven't been touched for quite a while with anything major. And then finally, the goal is for the 2018 gameplay update not to affect match duration. So that is one of their specific goals. So they actually said that if it starts affecting match duration too much, they will come in and make changes based on that, because they do not want matches getting longer because of the laning and the merc changes and stuff that they've made.
I actually don't think they'll get much longer, if at all. I think
we heard
with the other changes they made, I think it could end up in a good spot still.
We heard that absorbing that extra tower into the structures up front and everything checks out in the math.
And the Merc camp buffs and
yeah, so it seems okay. Yeah. And they're keeping an eye on it, which is always a good thing for sure. So this is another super interesting one, because we've had full discussions on this show about it. I think it's been a while, but they mentioned that they don't have plans for full MMR decay, as they found that players quickly bounce back to a 50% win rate after returning, even from extended absences. But the new system that's rolling out soon does factor in how long it's been since you last played as part of its rating. The effect is similar, but it's not a permanent reduction in MMR like a decay would be. So yeah, I think that's a pretty intuitive solution to that.
I'll continue.
I do wonder. What was that?
I said I will continue to say anytime decay is brought up that I still like my 6-month decay idea,
rolling
where
decay
it's just
idea.
always the past 6 months with a have to have a minimum of games in, because I think that's a good point to keep where you are.
I don't
how you're
hate it,
improving.
but I like that you can't permanently taint your account either by doing that sort of thing, because you wouldn't ever want people to just jump in on a Smurf and get their way back up there. So
Yeah.
it seems like this kind of helps solve that a little bit, which is nice to see. And then they also mentioned, of course, just that you can expect to see more cleanse-like abilities on supports that reward timing and precision. Note the words cleanse-like and not cleanse itself.
All right. I think that is important, especially for the several supports out there that don't have any form of cleanse right now.
Yes.
But yeah, so a lot of good stuff in there on the Q&A. I definitely suggest people going back and kind of reading through those, because there are some really good discussion points after some of the Blizzard responses and some other cool stuff in there as well. But let's go ahead and get into the HGC, because we're not there yet, but we're getting closer for Season 2. All right, TBK, we have a deadline has passed.
Yes,
And, it's an exciting time.
we have official rosters for all the teams, and I'm not going to go into like super detail on everything. There's a really nice article on the official Here's the Storm esports site. We'll have it in the show notes, so be sure to check that out. But I wanted to go over a few of the highlights for sure. North America wise, Fan and Glaurung are moving over to join Tempo Storm. And they will be joining Caterpillar, June, and Psalm. So this is going to be an interesting team, especially since they switched out Fury. And so that probably makes Caterpillar the main tank now. And both Fan and Glaurung are kind of, and Psalm, even two are kind of flex-ish. So
Glaurung's
it'll be really
Medivh.
interesting. Yeah, Glaurung's Medivh. So
It needs
it's
to
going to be
expand.
really interesting to see what the cadence for that team ends up being. There's a lot of talent, but I think the synergy is going to take a little while. Some of the other big things, Gale Force, of course, we talked about Mike Udall coming out of retirement. Quote, Hot's retired. It's Hot's retirement.
Hadn't technically
Doesn't
retired
mean
yet,
anything.
but
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything. And then, interestingly enough, Fury is rejoining Gale Force Esports.
yes.
So he's giving them a second chance. And they're going to be playing with B-Kid and Big Impact. So I'm pretty excited to see what that team does. I still think Fury is probably one of the best tank players that is in North America. So that could be a very decent team. And then, as I kind of alluded to, Big Impact and B-Kid, Gale Force Esports is no more. No more. So looking for more esports, which was imported support, is now moving up to join the ranks. And these were the guys that barely missed out on HGC. So interestingly, they're getting pulled up.
I thought it was imported support that barely missed out.
It is.
But-
They are now looking for more esports. LFM Esports. That's their new moniker.
Okay, because I thought that, because I thought I read this on Twitter somewhere, that LFM Esports was a different team that got second place, and then I don't know. I'm wrong, because imported support. Yeah, never mind. Just
Yeah,
You're
the
right. You're
imported
right.
just basically imported support has a new name.
Yeah.
Then of course Heroes Hearth Esports, new kids on the block, but they've got a lot of really good talent. I'm pretty excited to see what they're going to do. This will be their first time coming in, so should be really good. Space Station Gaming, the big kind of news here is Jay Shruti. Shrute?
Jay Shrite.
Shrewd?
Jay Shrite? Jay Shrute? I'm a terrible person, whatever. But regardless, the big story here is that he moved from the Latin American scene,
Mhm.
came over to the U.S. and got onto an HGC team, and he's a great player
He was
and a really hard worker.
Red Canids.
Yeah, Red Canids, their standout player for sure. Their standout player, Red Canids. So I'm really excited to see him coming into the pro scene pretty much right away. And especially now that he'll have the competition he needs to really grow his talent, I think he could be a very, very strong player because I don't know if you've watched any of his streams or follow him on Twitter or anything, but he has a very, very high work ethic. So I'm pretty excited to see what he's going to do.
Shrite.
Shrite. Thank you, L-Train.
So I think I said
As
it at
usual.
some point. I think that was one of the things I
If
said.
you throw
maybe,
enough
possibly.
darts at the board.
Exactly. Roll 20, Dansky and Cure are joining them. Cure, of course, coming from Team Freedom. So it looks like a very, very solid lineup for them. Superstars is no more, but it's not like a disband. It's just a name change because Erho and Hosty are staying, but they're picking up K1 Pro, King Caffeine, and Zuna, of all people. So I'm actually really excited to hopefully see Zuna on something that is not tank, because that's where that guy thrives.
Yeah.
And K1 Pro and King Caffeine just kind of seem to like they're a package deal at this point.
Mhm.
So
That's a
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a lot of tank players on one team, though.
It's weird because there is no they dropped Iacona, who was their support player,
Yeah,
and so technically there is no support player.
yeah, because Zuna, King Caffeine, and Urho have all been tanks.
So I think K1 Pro is going to be supporting.
But-
Interestingly enough,
That would be interesting. I don't know.
yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Over on the Europe side, the boy band has broken up. Bad Benny
They've
and
gone two
Benny.
directions.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. That's good. I like it. I like it.
That's good.
Bad Benny and Mene will be joining Fnatic for this next season, which is pretty awesome. And Wubby will actually be going over to Team Dignitas along with Pollock because of Baker's retirement. So some interesting change-ups on both Fnatic and Dignitas.
Yeah, those are
If you're
huge moves.
watching the Gold League, which is going on now in China, both the new Fnatic and Team Dignitas. I think both the Fnatic and the new Team Dignitas rosters are playing there. I'm pretty
Gold
sure.
League.
In Gold League. Because there's a few invites, because Roll20, the new Roll20 squad is there. And I may be wrong. I haven't been able to keep up with Gold League. It's aired at a time when I am sleeping.
Yeah.
So it's something I want to catch up on soon because it's
odds
the
out there, I'm
first.
sure.
Yeah, it's the first kind of showcase of some of these new rosters. Not their potential, of course, but just kind of the initial thing, getting together as a team. Let's see. Any other big stuff? Team Expert is picking up Schwimpy. And like I said, Dignitas picked up Wubby. And then some of the other big things, Diamond Skin actually picked up Robodoba.
Mhm.
And this is another one of those minor region move to major region and then jump into HGC right away.
This was Navintic,
Which is-
right? I mean, not Navintic. Why the New Zealand? So it
I
started with
believe
an
so.
N, right? What
Yes.
was their name?
The
Nomia?
Australia New Zealand team, Nomia.
Nomia. Yeah, there we go.
Yep. And interestingly enough, on Team Expert, Arcaner, who is one of the probably most recognized players from the ANZ region, is actually joining Team Expert. And so we had 3 minor region move to major region players that were able to get onto the HGC, and these are extremely talented, hardworking guys. So I'm really excited to see where this talent is going to go. with the extra, bump up in competition they're going to be able to have now.
It's not going to the minor regions. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I was about to say, what's going to happen to the minor regions?
Yeah, and that's kind of interesting. And I know they're changing up the minor regions format a little bit for 2018. We don't have a ton of details on all that stuff yet and how they're going to work it, but I really do hope that they do put in a little more effort into the minor regions this time around and develop that talent, because we've seen some really good things out of the minor regions, considering the lack of big competitions and the high level play that they're able to go to. So I really hope they do put in a little more effort into the minor regions this year.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, those are the big ones that stand out. Like I said, there's lots of changes made across just about every single team. So like I said, go to the show notes, check out that article. It's got all the stuff for all the major regions except for China.
Yeah, and I believe so that has the set team rosters. I believe it was Town Hall may have put out some link that actually like highlighted the changes on their Twitter if you're interested in going and looking at that as well. But speaking of things to go look at, TBK, what do we got for community content this week?
So this week there's a few things. Caldor did a pretty sweet, a fairly long interview with Travis McGathy on the performance matchmaking. And there's a lot of good stuff in the video. The link will be in the show notes. Definitely go check that out if you're interested on kind of deep diving into how the performance-based matchmaking is going to be. I know we've talked about it quite a lot on this show so far, and I'm super excited for it because it's going to get me back into Hero League next season.
Yeah, and they've been doing a lot of publicity on this, which is good because it is a big change and people have a lot of questions about it. So there's some stuff that's kind of rehashed, but there's a lot of good information in there. So check it out.
Yeah, for sure. Secondly, we announced this week I'm actually going to be doing writing for Heroes Hearth. So you will start seeing more written content from me just over on Heroes Hearth. If you want to follow me over there, I've already released a few blogs and such. So if you're interested in some longer, more in-depth things on some of the conversations we talk about, you can head over there and check those articles out. Also, I have to shout out Alarak of the Storm.
Yes.
Multi talked about him a little bit last week, but this dude is putting out some of the funniest Heroes comics and stuff that I've seen.
Not just Heroes, but I mean some other
really funny art style. He has an amazing one. He put out an amazing one when the support nerf patch notes came out, and it's all the supports huddled up, and Stukov's arm is wrapped around all of them. They're all huddling together.
Giving a hug.
It was amazing. It's so good. So the link for his stuff will be in the show notes. Go follow on Twitter. You will be glad that you did.
I will say, in this comic especially, he made Lily's face just as creepy as it is in game. So well done. Well done, Alarak of the Storm.
Indeed.
Yep.
And
it's all good stuff. And he's hanging out in our Discord too. So
yeah.
Good to see him.
All right. So we also have some questions to get to this week, so we'll go ahead and hop into those. All right. So first off, Chillrog had sent us in a audio question that I knew about at the time, and then I wasn't here last week, and then I forgot about it and didn't get it prepared for this show to play. So I apologize, but we're gonna have to push that off until next week. Just so
you don't have to admit to that. Just say this has been a really packed episode, and I'm sorry. We'll get to it.
I'm an honest guy. I'm honest Gizmo. So I apologize.
And Chillrog's a cool guy. He'll be okay with it.
And we really do love the audio questions. So thank you for doing that. But Malty, our first one comes from Stimmed Sheep here. Stimmed Sheep Zord.
One of the best names out there for sure. Based on your discussions this past week about the in-game map explanatory items, Do you think it makes sense to list out what heroes are strong on maps and which ones are weaker on maps? What about having an in-draft list that would pop up when hovering a hero indicating synergies and counters? This doesn't have to be in draft, but it could be a menu on the side maybe to help newer and more casual players. Yeah, I think those are both kind of interesting ideas. This kind of ties into our discussion earlier about how they're going to start trying to build heroes that are a little bit more generalized for a while so that we just don't have as much of a map strength issue. But it's still going to happen some, I think, just naturally over the course of the game. Anyway, I think it does already. So, yeah, I could see something like that because, for things like that, we do have to go outside to third-party sources. And there's just so many, and it's such a hodgepodge, and there's not like just this one place where you can find a solid list like that, I don't think, unless you've come across anything TBK or Gizmo. But so, I mean, to have an in-game option for that definitely seems like just something that players could use, I mean, of all levels. And what do you think?
Well, it's one of those things where you have to be really careful with that kind of information because Blizzard themselves probably doesn't want to and shouldn't dictate what is good where.
And like the meta around it.
And the meta around it. Yeah, that should be kind of a community thing to figure out. I'm very much for like how to play this character, tips and tricks for this character, that type of thing, but not necessarily you should play this dude here or play this dude here.
How about if it was more generalized? How about if it was, that you got a little tooltip maybe on each hero that gives you a general idea? Like Zool has really good wave clear. And then
exactly that type of thing is fine.
Weak
to like a strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
And then
hover
the Spider Queen could come up and it could say wave clear heroes are strong here.
Yeah.
Yes,
so
exactly.
You could
that
like
kind
put
of stuff
those together in your mind.
Yes, that kind of stuff would be great.
I would love that. I don't want that on the draft screen at all. I want that to be something else you can go to look at.
But still in game.
Yeah, still in game. And I agree with TBK, not only that we don't want Blizzard dictating what the meta is, but also I do think that is knowing that stuff is a good reward for players that are putting in the time to either research on different sites or figure it out on their own. I think this kind of just comes into the strategy and stuff of gameplay, and hopefully whenever they get more generic heroes and stuff out, it's not as big of a deal anyways. So if you're a more casual player or beginner, that shouldn't be a big issue until you get up on the higher levels.
Yeah, and that kind of builds into the synergies and counters thing as well, because, yeah, I mean, if you not only know who synergizes and who counters what, but also have the player, like the hero pool diversity as a player to take advantage of that, you just have that much more of a leg up on people that just don't know it. So
yeah, and Rafflesword is pointing out heroes counters. Good old heroes counters.
Yeah. We haven't talked about heroes counters.
We used that for a long time. Yeah, and then we
stopped. Like 2 years or something.
That is a very good website to go check out. It is completely community focused. It's just you go to the website, you can click on a hero, it shows you their strengths, weaknesses, and you can kind of upvote or downvote all those matchups and stuff. And so it just lists it by community votes, which is kind of cool.
And because of that, it sometimes does show trends. I mean, not always, but good amount of the time you get to see a list of who they synergize well with and who counters them, etc. So, but yeah, I mean, there's nothing like that in game. So,
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
In game.
Indeed. Let's see here. What else do we got? Did I even get to his whole question? I don't think I did.
You got the second part after the bullets.
Okay. Sounds good. Let's see here. Of course, he was bringing up, the other issues with this, that there could be too much clutter. Does this influence the draft too much, etc.? Maybe it could be a training wheels style feature for new players that could be toggled on and off. I kind of like that idea for this concept in general, to have the option to toggle these sorts of things off if anything like this comes out. Let's see. He also writes, I have heard talk about possibly in-game links or options to view pro replays, pro hero comps, and even their talent trees. Do you think this has merit? Would you encourage more coordinated play? Thoughts on heroes good in pro play versus heroes good in Hero League? Like, for example, Medivh is great in pro play, but poor in HL. Butcher can emphasize or own in Hero League, but will never see pro play. On rare occasion, but he doesn't do that hot, I don't think. And so to that point, I mean, again, to have a lot of that stuff in game, I don't see anything wrong with having the option to go back and see VODs of pro replays and hero comps and talent trees. But the fear on that one, again, is that some people might think that's the only build you can go on certain heroes, and they aren't really getting the full feel of, reacting to different situations throughout the game and that sort of thing. So I'd be a little bit worried about that. I think in some ways, some aspects of that kind of thing could encourage more coordinated play, but I'm still a little lukewarm on it. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
I don't know about building like pro replays and stuff and comps into the client. I would love them to incorporate being able like a observer mode at some point into the client to observe friends. There are sites you can go to watch pro replays.
Mm-hmm.
And I have
shout out to Master League.
Yeah.
That's got all the tournament replays, game breakdowns and whatnot that you can see from pretty much any of the tournaments. So go check that out if you're interested in watching some pro replays on your own with, being able to pause them and play them back and watch someone closely.
I do think, I don't know if, I'm sure you probably can, if you go to like HOTS logs, you can probably search some of the professional players and look at their match history to see what heroes they picked, what talents they were going, what their matchups were. But I don't think there's anything like super intuitive. I would love to see a site like that. There is a site for League called probuilds.net that you can go up and it pretty much puts, I think it's like any grandmaster or master player has all their games and like all their entire builds and stuff and matchups, which is pretty useful. But yeah, it'd be cool to see some more of that stuff. It's just, I don't think Blizzard would be doing that. It'd be a community built.
It kind of goes back to what we talked about last week with the in-game community tab, where some of this type of content could live.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but it'd just be nice to see like what they're doing as far like in Hero League, like what heroes are they playing in Hero League instead of just the tournament scene that we're seeing right now. Like what's good in solo queue, what are they taking in? But yeah.
And then the very, very last part of his question was, and we could probably talk on this far too long, so just super briefly, guys, he's asking, who do you think the next hero is going to be? What type do you think the hero will be? And he says, I'm hoping for something with a purge ability that slows but removes all buffs and debuffs. And you know what? To build on your idea there, purge, that's a shaman ability, right? Morgul the Oracle.
But if you're slowing, are you really removing all buffs and debuffs?
You're applying a debuff. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, yeah. What do you guys think? Super fast. Who do you want?
I'll just say Firebat. I'll say Firebat.
I mean, that is the most logical one, right?
Yeah.
And it feels like even this PvE Brawl event could have been meant for him, but potentially he was delayed for some reason, and so it didn't come out at the same time and came out early, since it is a StarCraft themed thing. Firebat does make a lot of sense.
Firebat Warrior.
A priest. I would love a priest. Draenei. Uriel. Like a Ret Pally would be pretty awesome.
You get a Draenei priest out of Prophet Velen,
Yeah, or Prophet Velen. Yeah. That would, kill two birds with one stone. That would get us a priest class, and that would get us our Draenei.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. Multi?
Honestly, I'm a little torn these days. Some of my favorites have come out, but I could use more dragons. I still want that full-time dragon. I think it's a pipe dream at this point. I think
you could always use more dragons.
But no, I've been pretty content thus far. Honestly, the one I'm looking forward to the most right now, though, is Deckard Cain. Like, I just want to know the direction they go with him. I don't think he's next. That doesn't answer his question, but that is definitely the one I'm looking forward to the most at this point.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Sorry, I almost coughed there. That's going to do it for the questions this week, and I will remember to get the audio question ready for next week. But before we get out of here, Multi, why don't you go ahead and tell people where we can be reached?
We can be found in-game by typing /join space LOTS, or you can join our Discord, which is at bit.ly/lotsdiscord, or it's sticky to the top of our Twitter at Lords of the Storm. We're also on twitch.tv/Lords of the Storm live Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Central. You can also check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/Lords of the Storm podcast. And you can email us with feedback or questions, lordsofthestorm@outlook.com. And if you want to help out the show, yet again, there's a couple good ways of doing it. Leaving reviews, preferably positive ones, but any kind of review. I mean, we just want to improve. 5-star iTunes reviews are particularly welcome, as are new patrons in the Patreon. Again, patreon.com/Lords of the Storm, where we just can't stress this enough. I don't want to get cheesy every week on you guys, but seriously, you guys keep the lights on over here and the ketchup packets flowing, so we appreciate it. Anyone who's ever considered giving any amount.
What do we do without our ketchup packet?
Good old ketchup. Love
I don't
ketchup.
even know.
You can also find us individually, myself on Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, all those things at Gizmozord, as well as Tuesday nights at 10 p.m. Central over on Convert to Raid Presents, the BattleNet News. I do want to give a quick shout out to my pal Kick Tripod, John Horseman, who started a brand new show today. It is the Overwatch League Daily Show that you can look up on all your podcast stuff. It is going to be a 5-day-a-week 15 to 30 minutes episodes, keeping you up to date on the Overwatch League. So I'm really looking forward to that. Its first episode was fantastic, really high production value. So if you're into Overwatch League, make sure to check that out. Multi, where can you be reached?
I can be found certainly on Twitter at Multizord. And I also want to show you guys the podcast, if you haven't checked it out yet, called The Cavalry. It's kind of our sister show, the other Zord Network one. It's about Overwatch. It's at The Cavalry Show on Twitter. And they're also, they didn't do it this week, but they're trying to go for live Wednesdays at 7:30 on twitch.tv/The Cavalry Show. But I will remind you that there is yet another Overwatch League show out there, the Overwatch League Network, of which Slambo, our good buddy over there on The Cavalry, is one of the hosts. So check that one out as well if you're just way too hyped about this Overwatch League stuff.
It's a
And
hot,
they're on
hot new show
Twitter
topic.
at OWLN Show. And that one's not daily, which I like that Horseman's doing that, a daily show.
Yeah, it's
be
because
interesting.
I imagine I think it's more like Sports Center.
Right.
Theme,
That's kind of what
daily
they're
doses
trying
is
to
nice.
go with here. They're trying to make it like an ESPN show for the Overwatch League Network, but on a weekly basis instead. So
Yeah, I am.
yeah.
I am.
Well, it's hard to
that's
do.
interesting.
It's hard to do like anything daily unless it's kind of your job.
and for Horseman, it is, I think. isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm super. I didn't think I was gonna be super stoked for it. I kind of fell off, but I'm actually extremely excited for the Overwatch League. Extremely excited.
Me
But
too.
TBK, I guess we'll get to you. Where can you be found?
You can find me on Twitter, of course, at TBKZord, twitch.tv/TBKZord, where I normally stream Monday nights, as well now, heroeshearth.com, where you can find all my written content.
Excellent.
Do you have an Overwatch League show that you want to plug real quick?
I'm sure that the payload. I know Blizz
There you
Pro
go.
does the payload, so go
That's
listen
not
to that or
Overwatch League.
something.
That's John's other actual Overwatch show.
Whatever.
Gosh,
but check it
TBK.
out too.
I don't play
all right?
Overwatch.
Yeah.
There's 10 billion Overwatch podcasts at this point.
Dude. But the new Blizzard World map, you got to try that.
I actually haven't.
We
tried
also
that yet.
need that in Heroes.
Yes.
That would be good.
Anyway,
Take that.
All right. Well, we're going to get out of here. We want to give a special thanks to our patron, producer Ouroboros Sword, for helping support the show. Until next time, grab your fire extinguishers, put out the support fire. We'll see you guys all next week. Same time, same place, Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Central. We're at Lords of the Storm. Nope, twitch.tv/Lords of the Storm. There it is. See you then. Goodbye.
Enough. I shall do no more.
No more.
No more.
No more.